Hey, and welcome to another episode of the Marco Podcast.
A show dedicated to the realness of organization and entrepreneurship. This space was created for every woman who needs motivation or inspiration to get organized and to keep going after her dream. I'm your host, Angel J. Sit back and prepare for valuable tips, resources, laugh, and much more. If this is your first time here, welcome, and thanks for joining. If you've been hanging around for a while, welcome back, and I hope you brought a friend. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode. Today, I am super excited, and I am over here fangirling because I get to talk to one of my favorite podcast hosts, Ashley Leggs. Ashley is the founder of AshMedia Network and the host of not one, but two impactful podcasts. Ashley's remarkable journey began with the Slay Girl Slay podcast, a platform dedicated to motivating and inspiring women to be leaders in their community. Fiercely go after what they deserve and show up as their most unapologetic, most authentic selves. Known for being the best friend every woman should have, Ashley's powerful yet relatable messages have attracted the likes of hundreds of thousands of diverse women all over the world. In addition to her groundbreaking work on Slay Girl Slay, Ashley recently launched her second show, the Good News Podcast. With this new endeavor, Ashley continues her mission of spreading positivity and uplifting narratives and providing a beacon of hope in challenging times. She is boldly defining the narrative of what it means to be an ambitious woman and embodies the very message she shares through her work. Everyone, let's welcome Ashley. Hi, Ashley. How are you?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to have you here. Is there anything else that you would like to share before we get started?
No, that's such a good intro. No, I think you you hit everything on the head. I have nothing else to share.
Okay, I love when people are like, that was such a great intro. And I'm like, you
Yeah,
wrote it.
you wrote it, you know.
You wrote it. Good job. So you are the host of not one, but two podcasts. So how did you get into podcasting? What made you jump into this
Oh my
thing?
goodness. So I hate to use the term back in the day because that kind of ages me a little bit. Kind of shows you how old I am, but back in the day, there was a show called Serial back in the day, and it was I believe it was like an NPR show. I could have this so wrong, but they had the show. It was back when podcasting wasn't a thing, and a friend of mine at work was like, "You got to listen to this podcast." I didn't even know what podcast was, and listened to it, got hooked on it. Right. At the time, I was working corporate America, and I had been in corporate like 5 years at that time. I really didn't know what I wanted to do next, but I knew like I can't do this forever. Like this is not what I wanted. I wanted more, I wanted bigger. And at the time, the only big goal, big dream that I had was to move to LA. And so, I'm listening to this podcast at my desk and applying to transfer my job to Los Angeles. I get denied. I get denied not once, not twice. I get denied 3 times. I had been at this company going on 6 years at this point. My feedback was great. Everything from my superiors to my peers was like, you're such a great employee. But every single person that I would interview with or talk to would always say, like, it's not your time. It's not a good time for you to transfer. It's the same role, same pay, just in a different part of, the US. And so I think that third time I was very upset and went into the bathroom. And I should also mention, I'm not sure if this is like really important, but to me it is. I was the only Black girl on my team at the time. I was the only Black girl in the region. And so I saw like other people getting promoted and getting these transfers before me that came after me. And so I'm just like, what is it about me that's wrong? Why am I not good enough to transfer and get this promotion or
Right.
whatever?
Yeah.
And so I went to the bathroom. I'm so upset. And I'm just like, you know what? I don't care what I have to do. I never want to feel like this again. I never want to feel like I am not worthy of something that I dream about, something that is on my heart to do. And I don't want the decision to be someone else's.
Mhm.
So I was just in the bathroom, like, you know what? I'm going to start my own company one day, and I'm going to make people like me who look like me, who don't come from the same backgrounds, who, have dreams, girls who want better for themselves, girls who just want to be themselves at work. I'm going to create a company for them, and I'm going to create a company that makes them feel seen, them feel heard. I want the dreamers to rise up essentially and feel like, you don't have to do this just because society says you need a 9 to 5. You don't have to do that. If you want to go to space, whatever, you do that. You know what I'm saying? And you
Right.
feel motivated and you feel encouraged enough to do it. And so literally went home and was like, I'm gonna start a podcast. There was no thought that went into it. I wish I had this like beautiful story to tell you, like, oh yeah, it was meant to be this podcast. No, I didn't know how to podcast. I didn't know how to start one, where to start one. And I literally Googled how to start a podcast on Google and found this YouTube video. This YouTube video was 20 minutes. It told me what to buy, how to do it. Followed the video to a T. I got this crummy mic off of Amazon. I think it was like 20 bucks. And recorded my first episode. And the intention wasn't to become a boss or do it full time. It really was just like, I'm going off of this curiosity that I have and this drive, like, okay, I don't know what I want to do, but I want to do something. And I want to talk to the girls who want to do something too. And that is how the podcast started.
Wow, I love that. Like that's so cool that you was like, you know what, I'm not doing this, and you kind of just you went for it, and
Hmm.
here you are. What 6 years later? Because this was like 2018
This
when you
was
started.
2018. This was
Okay,
2018. If you had told me in 2018 that this is what I would be doing 6 years later, I wouldn't believe you. I wouldn't believe you.
like, yeah, because it started on a whim, and it's probably one of those
Mhm.
things. Like when it happened, you're probably just like, you know what, I'm mad right now. I'm upset. I feel hurt. Like I just need to channel this energy somewhere and like let it out, and didn't
Yep.
realize that, oh, this is what I'm doing here.
Yep. Mhm.
So,
That's exactly how it went.
wow. So, how did you like during the times where you're just like, okay, I want to quit? Because I know it all started from you're trying to get this promotion because you wanted to move to LA and that wasn't working out. So, like, what ended up happening? Did you get to LA? What happened? Did you want to put the podcast on the back burner? How did everything transpire after you started the podcast?
Yes. So after that, I was just like, I'm not even going to work for this company anymore because, first of all, y'all denied me several times. I don't want to be your employee anymore. Um, so I got on Google, started searching jobs in Los Angeles, and applied for a couple of jobs. I had a resume that was on my desktop, my work desktop. And I don't recommend this, but during work, I would just sit there and apply to other jobs at work. And one called me back. I got the job. I moved 3 weeks later. And, at the time, it wasn't like, oh, you got to stop podcasting. It was just like, well, I'm living here now, guys. And it made for great content, at the time to talk about this huge transition in my life. And so moved to California, made new friends, started this new job. But the podcast was still kind of like on the side, it wasn't something that I was doing all the time. I would tell people I have a new episode every Monday. It was not every Monday that a podcast episode went out, and really just was just playing with it,
Right.
I think at the time I maybe had like, I believe when I first got to California, I had like 40 listeners to the show. And that made me so happy. Like it was probably my mom's friends, my parents' friends, them listening, my parents listening. I remember my dad would like listen to the same episode on different devices just so I
Oh,
can get a download.
oh,
And that was enough for me, like, oh my God, I got 40 listeners,
right.
and it really wasn't a huge thing. And so because it wasn't so huge, it wasn't like, oh my God, like this is my life now. I was just happy to be in Los Angeles and the weather was nice. And, like I really wasn't thinking about it in that way, but that feeling was still there. Like, yo, you want more, like this is not enough. This is not satisfying me the way that I want to be satisfied. Like, if I can do this, if I can get myself here, what else can I do? And that always lived inside of me.
Mm.
And I said, you know what? Like, whatever happens, happens. And then COVID happened and I lost my job. And so then that's when I started to do the podcast full time.
Okay. Okay,
Mhm.
cool. I just want to say, first of all, I love your dad. Like when you talk about him on the show, and when you talk about like his advice that he gives you, like his lectures or
Mhm.
something, I feel like I'm getting lectured too. And I'm like, ooh, I was like, I'm sorry, I'm gonna get it together. I didn't mean to do that. Like, I really
Right.
feel like, he's talking to all of us here. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing his messages and letting us know because that gives me motivation and everything to keep going as well.
Oh, that
So
means a lot to me. I'll have to share that with him. He
yeah.
thinks that the podcast is his. And some days, like I was just visiting him last week and he asked me something and I was like, I don't know. And he said, I'm going to start billing you for my advice because I'm going to hear it on the podcast anyway. I'm sorry. Hello. What did you say? Like,
I mean,
and he was so serious. Like, I'm going to start billing you because I hear my advice on your show.
mhm,
And I'm like, but I give you credit. Anytime you give me advice, I tell everybody my dad said this,
you do.
but he's like, but I'm your content. And I'm just like, Daddy, go to take a nap.
Oh my god, I tell my son that all the time. He starts to, so I'm like, go take a nap. Like,
Take a
go
nap.
take a nap. So yeah,
Go take a nap.
I actually just recently listened to because like I told you before we started, so I always listen to the Monday episode when it comes out, and then throughout the week I go back and I'll like listen to another episode. So I just recently listened to the episode with your dad on there. And I think I listened to that one twice.
Oh
Yeah, and so I
yeah.
listened to that one twice because he was just like cracking me up. He was just like
Oh
so
my
nonchalant, but
gosh.
like he was in dad
That
mode.
man. I wish there were cameras in the room when we sat down to do the interview. It was like pulling teeth. Like he is such a like we're going to do it my way kind of person. I am also a we're going to do it my way kind of person. Also, this is the Slay Girl Slay podcast, not the dad podcast. And so at the end of the day, this is still my show. And so we were arguing, and he's like, no, we got to do it this way. And you have to say it like this, sir. Not you trying to tell me how to do my job. So yeah,
Right.
I wish the world could have seen like the behind the scenes of that episode. You can kind of almost hear us arguing in
Yeah.
some of the episodes. We're literally going back and forth about the microphone.
Yes. Yes,
Mhm.
you can. But I loved it. I thought it was so cute and it was just so real and raw and honest. So thank you for doing the episode. And I hope you two do another episode together.
Oh my gosh, people ask me that all the time. They're like, when is Dad going to be back on the podcast? Girl, I don't know.
See,
I do not know. The
see,
stress, the
tell Dad.
stress alone. Mm-mm.
We want Dad back. Don't deny us. Don't deny us.
Don't deny it. I'll see what I can do. Trying to get him to sit down long enough to do it. That's the struggle too. I don't have time for this. I gotta go cut the grass. I have to change the light fixtures. Like, Daddy, be
Please.
so serious.
Right. You got 20 minutes. You can give me 20 to
About
30
20
minutes.
minutes.
Like,
Right.
right.
Right. So
I love it. I love
crazy.
it. So you said the pandemic was what made you start podcasting
Yes.
full time. So was it just because you were working from home and you had more time, or how did it kind of trickle into that?
So I always tell people I wanted to be a boss. At the time, the term girl boss was cool to use. You can't use that term anymore. But
No.
back then it was like, ooh, you want to be a girl boss.
Right.
So at the time, I'm like, yes, that's what I want to do. I want to be a boss. I want to set my own schedule one day. But I didn't want to do it at that moment. And I truly believe God was like, well, it's now or never, because I got comfortable and I made all these friends and I was happy with my life and, I got my own place. And if that hadn't happened, I probably would have never done it full time. But the pandemic hit, everything shut down. I was applying to jobs to try to keep it going and
Right.
kept getting denied. And eventually it was just like, well, you have to go back home because LA rent is so expensive and
Oh
you don't
yeah.
have a steady income. And so what else do you have? And at the time, I only had a podcast. It wasn't even making money. It was just something that I was just doing to feel purpose, to feel fulfilled, And so I said, okay. And at the time, it hurt, right? Like it was like, there's no way. this is happening. God bless me with this place. And, I'm doing all these things. I'm doing what you asked me to do, but I lost everything. Now I have to pack up my place and sell all my furniture and move back home to Chicago with a podcast. Like that's not going to keep the lights on,
Right.
and I felt very, very hurt. Just like, where is life going and what am I going to do with this show? But I felt like God was like, but you said this is going to be your last job, so what are you going to do? So I packed up and went back home to Chicago and had to live with my mom again, which I don't know if any of you out there are adults and have had to go back home to mom or dad. It's a different experience than when you do it, when you're in your younger teenage college years.
Right.
Um, and so living back in my childhood bedroom, and I mean like childhood bedroom, there are B2K posters around and, like just not the vibe that I was going for. But I had my microphone, I had my computer, and I had something to say. And so I said, this is what I've got, and I'm going to just use what I've got. And so
Oh,
I've been doing that ever since.
okay, cool. And so what did you do during times, because you said that, the podcast wasn't making money at the time, and I think that's what a lot of people think about podcasts, is like you start one and boom, it's instant income, and that is just not the case. So what did you do during the times where you was just like, I want to give up? Like, God, I said this was my last job, but now like, I got this podcast. I'm sitting here in my childhood bedroom, and this thing is not bringing in any money. Like, how did you motivate yourself to keep going during those times?
So I never want to live my life in a what if state, right? And so I never want to go through life like, what if I did this? What if I did that? And so I used to think like, man, if I gave up today, what if it happens tomorrow? Or what if I just held on a little bit longer and it happens next week and I get the downloads or I get the sponsor or whatever, right? This all makes sense. What if it happens, but I gave up? And so I never wanted to live with that kind of regret. Like, man, if you just had kept going, who knows what would have happened? And so that's the first thing, right? Like, I just can't do what if. I don't want to be sitting in my rocking chair at 99 on my way to meet glory. Like, man, I wish I would have kept going with this thing. I want to be able to stand before God one day, like, yo, I did that thing, okay? Like, I did exactly what you told me to do, and everything you placed on my heart, I tried it. Maybe it didn't work out, maybe half of it failed, but at least I know I tried. And so that is really what kept me going. And I also felt like I owed it to myself, to see it through. I have become a woman of my own word over the last few years, and every time I prove something to myself, the next time I'm like, oh, you got to do it again and you got to do it bigger and you got to do it better. And so, even just for me, I can say I want to give up, but deep down, because I'm so committed to it and I've made this decision that, yes, this is what I'm going to do and I'm going to see it through to the very end, I can't, like I just can't. And so, for anybody, that may want to give up or feeling like you're ready to throw in the chips and, just it's whatever, take a moment. My mom always says, go take a nap like you. And she'll just be like, hey, just go rest, close your eyes, rest for a minute, step away from it for a little while. Sometimes we're just so in it all the time, and that's all you think about, and that's all you pray about, and that's all you talk about. You have no room for the creativity to come up. You have no room for the new ideas to come up because you're so nitpicking on the one thing that you're doing. Sometimes you got to step back and just let it come to you. And I'm saying that like I have that in the bag, but I don't. My dad literally told me a few days ago, like, take a step back. You're looking at it too closely. And so I have learned the days when I want to give up that the world is always going to end sometimes, but it will always begin again the next day. And so it's okay if you feel like you're done, but tomorrow you may feel differently. So take a step back, rest, look at something else, go do something else, go outside, go touch some grass, and then come back to it. And I guarantee you, when you come back, you'll feel a lot better.
Yes, that is such good advice because that's something that I have actually had to start doing because, and I don't know if you experienced this when you first started out. Like you said, it's like you feel like you have to do everything. And if you're doing anything but like working on the podcast or working on your business, you're like, that's time that I could be working on the podcast. That's time I
Yep.
could be working on the business and I'm missing out on this. And even when you're doing other things, you're still constantly thinking about it. And
Hmm.
he said, I just realized it's like all of my time and energy is being devoted to this. It's like, what else am I missing out on? What am I not being able to enjoy because I'm
Yep.
constantly thinking about this? And it's like not just personal, but as far as business eyes, now I'm getting burnt out and now I'm getting stressed out. So take a break, come back refreshed. And you come back so refreshed. And you're like, okay, now I have a little bit of clarity. And it's like, well, now I can put this on the back burner because
Yep.
it's not that important. It can come at a later time. And
Right.
it's easier said than done. But
Oh
when you
yeah.
do it, it's so wonderful. So
Oh, for
wonderful.
sure, for sure. And you just always have to remember, right? Like, or for you specifically with your show and your business and what you have created, that it's not a race, like there is, where are we racing to? Why is everybody in a race? Where are we going? So
Exactly.
you have to just take your time. And the best piece of advice that I got when I first started was I was watching a YouTube channel, and they had this like talk from Oprah. I don't know if Oprah's canceled these days,
I
so
don't either.
tread lightly. I don't know, girl, but
Yeah.
take that with a grain of salt. Um, who knows? But she said, it takes more energy looking to the left and to the right of you and behind you at what everybody else is doing and how they're doing things and how they're managing their business or whatever projects that they're working on. But you keep those blinders up like they do in horse racing. The horses have the
Mhm.
blinders up so they don't see the horses to the left or to the right of them. They only see what's in front of them. And so we as people, we as creators, entrepreneurs, or what have you, same rules apply. It takes so much energy to be like, "Oh man, look at them. They're excelling. Their podcast is so great, or their business made whatever amount in sales this month and I didn't make anything." That's okay. Because what are you in a rush for? You'll get there. Just stay focused and look forward. So,
Okay. That is good advice. So thank you. What is like the hardest lesson that you think you've learned when doing all of this?
ooh, patience.
Patient. Okay.
Patience. Patience is everything.
Yes.
Um And it's more than just for business, it's for everything. Patience carries you. I learned a very hard lesson when I moved back home to my mom's house, and all my friends have their own place, and they're thriving. A lot of them are getting married, a lot of them are having kids, and I got a podcast. Like
Mhm.
it's just like it when you say it out loud, it's not giving what you wanted to give,
Right.
and you feel almost like you're lacking and you feel like you're at a deficit. But sometimes you just have to wait. Sometimes you have to use that time that you've been given to build to make it what it's supposed to be. And also, it's not going to happen overnight. Nothing happens overnight. And so we live in this like microwave society. We get on TikTok, we're watching these 15-second videos, 30-second videos, and we see, a girl tell her story in a 50-part story. Now she's famous. You know what I'm saying? And so in our minds, man, we worked hard. We should be doing that too. We should be getting the fame and the accolades too really quickly. And sometimes, like, you really got to let stuff cook first before other people digest it. Like, I like to think I would rather take my time and build as opposed to blowing up overnight, because then people will forget. And in
Right.
another couple months, they're gonna be like, "Who are you?" But if you go slowly and you're building and you're growing and you're building and you're growing and your people are going with you, your fans, or your supporters, your customers, they believe in you from the jump, and you're carrying these people with you. Those people don't forget about you. And so you're creating your own space in the world when you decide to just go at your own pace and accept that things will not happen overnight. So that's what I had to learn. Patience. It really is the key to everything, and it's not something that you physically do. Patience is a heart posture. It's, you know, this is how I choose to move forward patiently. I'm going to wait and I'm going to keep working and keep being patient.
I've never heard of it referred to as a heart posture before. That's a really
Mhm.
good way to put it. And what you said really resonates with me because it makes me think of earlier today. Someone had sent me a sermon to listen to last week. And you know how sometimes you're just in a space and you're like, I don't want to hear this right now. I'm not doing this. And so that was how my last week was. Like I started off listening to it and I was like, you know what? I am not in the place where I'm ready to receive this and accept this right now. So I
Yes.
can't. So I pushed it off and I started listening to it today. And the preacher was saying something kind of similar to what you said. He was like, it's like if you're a baker and you're baking this cake, like you've put all the time to put all the ingredients into it, mix it together, do everything that you're supposed to, and then you put it in the oven and you're waiting for it to bake, but then you decide that you're hungry. So you're going to pull it out 15-20 minutes early. And it's like, well, now your cake is ruined and you have to start
Mhm.
all over again versus if
Yeah.
you just had to have the patience and wait up that 15-20 minutes for it to finish. And I was like, oh, that
Yeah.
is a really
Yep.
good way to put it. So like you said, it's just this microwave society and we see everything happening like now. But again, like you said, this person blew up overnight. And now where are they? Like, we have all these one hit wonders out there, or, what
Yeah.
happened to this person is because they had that quick microwave popcorn success, but now it's gone. So you have to build that loyal following and those loyal people who are going to stick with you, whether you're up or down, popular or not popular.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, how did you go from having one podcast to creating a second podcast and creating like a whole media network?
Ooh. So, that was not the intention starting out. It never starts out that way, right? Like,
Right.
but I always tell people always follow like the curiosities that you had. Like you're just kind of like, oh, I want to try this, because you never ever know where it could lead you. So, I had the Say Girl Say podcast for a while. Just started to like make some money. I had hit like the 2 million mark on the show and I'm just like, okay, this is great, but I want to challenge myself, and can I do two shows? At the time, the Sacred Slave podcast is mainly me. I tell all my stories and I'm yapping every week on Monday for 20 minutes and people would reach out and they would just express one how much the show has meant to them, but they would also share their stories and how they overcame this from listening to the show and they overcame that. And I'm like, wow, some of these stories are so impactful and I want to hear more about this. And so um it came at a time during, I don't wanna say the pandemic. The pandemic for me was like 3 years, but,
Yeah, I'm with
um,
you.
it came, during that time I was still at home, and I lost my grandma at the time, my gram, and then a couple days later, I lost my aunt, and then literally the next day, I lost one of my best friends. So I had 3 very close people pass in 7-day period. And so that grief felt so insurmountable. Like I remember telling my mom, like, man, I just want some good news. Like all we've been getting is bad news and I just feel so down and I still have to show up on Monday for the show, but I don't feel like it. I don't feel good. I don't feel like I'm in a good spot. And I just want some good news. And I'll never forget, I was sitting at my desk and it just came to me like the Good News Podcast, a podcast featuring stories told by extraordinary women who have overcome extraordinary obstacles. Partially, I was tired of hearing like other podcasts with these huge celebrities that tell their stories and now they're bajillionaires and I'm just like that's so great to aspire to and like I love a lot of those stories, but in that moment and in that season I wanted to hear from someone who was kind of doing the same things I was doing, and they were feeling the same way I was feeling, and maybe they had some grief that they were trying to get through, and uh, that kind of started it. And I started asking people on the show, like, hey, if you have a really crazy story you want to tell me about how you overcame something, shoot me an email. And I got so many emails and just decided to do it. And so we produced the first season last January. And it was great. It was just like, this is cool. Now I have
Yeah.
two shows. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but a lot of podcasts are run by a podcast network.
Right.
And so when you belong to that podcast network, they tell you what to do, essentially.
Right.
You still have your show, you still have your content, but sometimes they own your IP, your intellectual property. So if tomorrow, for some reason, God Himself comes down and gives you a bajillion dollars and you want to turn your show into a movie or what have you, that network has the rights to whatever ideas that you have. They can tell you, yes, you can do this, no, you can do that. And at that time, I just felt like, man, I worked so hard on this up until this point. I don't want to give someone else the ability to tell me what to do with my ideas and my creativity. It felt like going back to that job I had, like, can I ask for this? Can I do this? Can I do that? And I
Right.
know that is the format that might work for a lot of people, which it does. But for me personally, I was just like, it's just not me. It didn't feel like me. And so I said, you know what, I'm gonna start my own network. And I have two shows now. The second show, both of my shows will be produced under this network. And if anyone ever wants to work with me in the future, if I ever want to do a movie, if I ever want to produce a book, I own that property and I will always own that property. And so that kind of gave me structure to what I was doing. Now it wasn't just something I was doing for fun on the side. Like now it's like, okay, now you have a business, now you have a house to put all of these projects that you want to do in, regardless of if it's going to be a podcast or not. If I want to branch off and do something else completely different, I still have something to put it in. So that is how that kind of came about. And it just kind of happened. It really was, again, not a lot of thought went into it. It was just like, I'm gonna do this, and I did it, and that's where we are now.
Okay, cool. I mean, I told you this before we started, but like you are such an inspiration. Like I haven't started listening to the good news yet because I'm like, I need to catch up on all my Slate Girl Slate episodes first. And then I was like, then I'm gonna go over there and catch up on all of those. But like just listen to your show and it's just so real and it's so raw and it's so honest. And I just love that. And like you said earlier, it's for the everyday person. Like it's not for the bajillionaires out there. And again, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's for the
No.
everyday person. Like I remember a while ago I had started listening to a podcast. I don't think it comes on anymore, but the lady was talking about like her self-care routine. And she was like, yeah,
Mhm.
sometimes I just need to get away. So I go to a fancy hotel for like a week or something like
Oh,
that. And,
wow. Yeah,
order room
no.
service and all that. And I'm like,
I can't afford it.
yeah, right. I'm like, well, the everyday
I can't
average
afford
person can't afford that. I'm like, I don't even know if I can afford to go to a fancy hotel for one night and order room service. I'm like, and you're talking about a whole week you went and just left your husband and your kid. And I'm like,
Yeah,
maybe I can go to the guest room and put a sign on the door that says do not
yeah.
disturb, but I don't know how that's gonna work. And so, sometimes stuff like that, it can kind of make you feel like, okay, well, I'm not at that level. I don't know if I'm ever gonna reach that level.
Yep.
And so that's why, like, I love hearing your podcast because you're like, I need a self care day. I went and got my nails done. I'm like, oh, affordable. I can go get my
Now that
nails
I
done.
can do.
You're like, I took myself out to a nice dinner. Cool. I can
Yep,
I can work with that.
yep,
And
yep.
I really like that about you. And that's one thing that I try to do on my podcast as well is when I do my entrepreneur episode is I want to tell like the real stories of it. I want to tell, about the person who's been in this for 6-7 years and they're, haven't made six figures yet, or, they've
Mhm.
quit 3 times and came back to it. So
Yep.
thank you for sharing that with the world and just,
Yeah.
having that platform and being honest. So
Yeah, you wanna tell the cool stories like, "Yeah, girl, I went to this resort for 2 weeks to reset my mind," and it's like, "Man, that must be so nice."
right,
But personally, all I can afford this week is Chipotle and a bottle of nail polish, like,
right,
that's all I got, and
right.
so I think anybody, podcast or not, whether you have a show, whether you have a business or whatever, when you move from a place of just being honest and showing people who you are from jump, you never have to pretend, to be anything other than what you are in the future. And so at least that's what I think, and I
Right.
hope that when people listen to my show or meet me in person, you're gonna get the same person that you get on the show, that's who you're gonna get in person. Will I be looking like this in this city? Probably, like, I'm not gonna be in a full space of glam because that's not what I do every day,
Right.
I'm not gonna lie to you and be like, "Yeah, girl, this weekend I went to the spa and got a facial." No, this weekend I rotted on the couch and I watched Love Is Blind, like, this and so I think that that is what a lot of people miss sometimes. Like they feel like they have to portray this like, person that has it all together at all times. And it's just like, girl, no, you don't. You
Right.
don't have to.
Right. Give yourself permission to be a mess. Like it's okay. It happens. So.
Right. Or just be yourself.
Right.
Like if some days you look homeless and then the next day you look like a Grammy award winning singer, great. Give people that. You don't have to always be on for everybody. You can just be who you are and you can still create and produce and move through life successfully.
Yes, I love that. I love that. Ashley, thank you so much for coming on the show. Is there anything
Yay!
else you would like to share before we go?
Check out my show if you have not already. The Slay Girl Slay podcast. It's on all audio platforms or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, the Good News podcast. The Slay Girl Slay podcast comes out every Monday. The Good News comes out every Wednesday. And just check me out. And I'm already subscribed to your show. I've been listening. I've
Yay.
been checking it out. Yes.
Thank you.
And I love it. And you keep doing it. You keep putting out these great episodes and staying consistent and staying true to who you are. Like there's truly nothing that you can't accomplish if you don't stick with it. So
Oh,
I'm rooting for
Ashley.
you.
Oh, thank you so much, Ashley. I appreciate that so much. And that means so much to me. It really means the world to me. And
Yes,
I'm so glad you came on here and that we got this opportunity to talk and to meet. So
of
thank
course, of
you.
course. Thank you. Thank you
You're
for having me.
you're so welcome. Well, I hope you have an amazing day and enjoy the rest of your day. And I will definitely link all of your information into the show notes so that everyone
Sounds good.
can. All right. I'll talk to you later.
All
Bye.
right. Talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Modco podcast. I hope that you enjoyed this episode and learned something from it. Be sure to share this episode with a friend, family member, colleague, or anyone you think will enjoy it. Make sure you hit the follow or subscribe button. And if you love the podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating and review on your favorite podcasting app. That helps others to find us and gets us listed in other show recommendations. So you all know that I run on coffee, and so does the show. If you'd like to buy us a coffee, you can do so by clicking on the link in the show notes. Thank you so much, and chat soon.